You're not too old to start, which sounds like something you tell yourself when you're convinced it's over, but it's not. Not quite. I'm turning 32 at the end of this month, and uh, there are days where I feel I missed the window, you know? Like everyone has it figured out, and I don't. I'm late to the party for whatever reason. But I don't necessarily think that the problem is age. I think the problem is we're all sold this sort of fake timeline. Well, you have to have success by 25. You have to have it all figured out. You have to have your dream body or whatever it is by a certain age. You have to be locked in by a certain age. For me, it was alcohol. Oh, I'm going to stop when I'm 25. And then 25 came along and I was like, I don't know. I'm going to keep this going. So we have all these things on this timeline that is preconceived by wherever, and we have to have it locked in by this age. And it's unnecessary. Nobody's got it all figured out by X age. To have these arbitrary numbers associated with when everything has to be figured out. There's some things that are like maybe a biological clock where it's like, you probably don't want to have a baby when you're 50. But a lot of these things, career-wise, etc., you have time. So that's how I would look at that. Next thing I want to talk about, which I kind of just touched on there, who decided all of this? Who decided that this is the way that things are? Because we see things like, oh, this person has a highlight reel. Here's the highlight reel of all the perfect things that are happening in their life. They just went on a trip. They accomplished a skill together. They have taken their mom to go somewhere or bought her something, all of these things where we're like, oh wow, this guy's got it made, this girl's got it made. But you have to remember, it's a highlight reel of all the best things happening in their life. They don't talk about the struggles to get there, because that part's not fun, Which, honestly, I think nowadays, you're better off detailing the struggle, because people find that relatable. I don't find, seeing these super rich celebrities, I'm like, who are you to preach to me about morality and all these other things? You like, we're so far removed from each other, it makes no sense, right? So don't compare yourselves to celebrities or anything, idolatry, it's talked about in the Bible. It's not a good thing. Don't idolize anybody, any person. Like, for example, the Swifties. Like, what is that? Anyway, I am getting sidetracked. It's a highlight reel. Oftentimes, also, we think in a survivorship bias way, Like, oh, we only focus on the successful outcomes. So everything else, in comparison, we don't really, once again, we don't see the failures. So to have it all figured out, seamless, no problems at all, it's just an unrealistic expectation. You got to find something that's worth taking the hits, because, everybody says, oh, you got to find something you love. Okay, well, fair enough, but if the going gets tough, are you going to keep wanting to do that? Maybe not. So what I say is find something maybe you're passionate about more than anything, like a cause or something. That's kind of what I intend to do with this channel. Some days I don't want to record. I can't think of anything. I'm struggling when I'm brainstorming. I'm not coming up with anything, but I force my hand and I make it happen. So get rid of the survivorship bias. You're gonna grow. And another thing, you never see people's quiet restarts, right? But I've gone through LinkedIn, and you see these people. You go check on your friends on LinkedIn who you probably think have it all figured out or they're successful or whatever, and you'll see they've switched jobs. You know, they worked at a place for 5 years and then they said, no, I'm going to try something else. And I feel like that's how jobs get their hooks in you. You know, they give you all these benefits and everything like that. So it's the pension, the dental, the healthcare, all these things that, you know, if push comes to shove and whatever, it's covered, you know, because if you're a YouTuber, I don't think YouTube has dental benefits or anything like that. It's pretty much just, here's your money, here's what you make. You have to pay for your benefits yourself, right? So they give you all these incentives for staying with the company that make it harder to leave. But if you do, like I did when I worked at a bank, it's not the end. You know, you're going to figure it out. It's trust your intuition, trust your gut. If you feel horrible where you're at and you dread going in every day like I was, perhaps it is time to change. Maybe a bit more calculated of a change than I did, which was just, you know, resigning on a whim. But try things out, you know. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You can always get another job. It might be lower paying, but it's all right, you know. If you can find contentment from within, I derive gratification from very little nowadays. So just keep that in mind. And here's the part that actually matters. Starting late doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure. I'll use Colonel Sanders from KFC. I've heard of this used as an example. Bro was in his like 70s or 80s when he came up with Kentucky Fried Chicken. 70, 80. Most people at that time, they're like, I'm retired. I'm good. I've done everything I need to do. I'm content, whatever. But man, do I admire it sometimes when I see like someone on YouTube, older guy, you know, like Dry Creek Wrangler School. Love that dude. Wisdom personified. I watched another one the other day. I don't even know his name. It was just an old dude. And he like blew up overnight because people just found that one video that resonated. And that's another thing I tell people. If you're looking to do YouTube or anything like that, it's a great idea to just build up the library, you know? Because you might have all these videos that you're like, man, this sucks, not getting any views. But you might have had, you know, one or two good ones. And ultimately, back to an earlier point, you know, people like to see that process. They like to see your first video compared to like your last video, you know, your latest video, and how much improvement you've made in that time, whether it be speaking in front of the camera better or whatever that may be, you know. So document your progress. And when you have all those videos now, like those guys did, I'm sure with the production value, and you know, it was pretty bare bones. It didn't really matter how much they put into it. You know, it was just, they were doing their own thing. And eventually one video took off, and then all that library they have now is being watched. Whereas if, let's say, you get one viral video, but you have nothing else for them to go to, what a lost opportunity, right? So if you have videos and you're like, oh, that's not working out, that's a try. Now, if that's not applicable to you, I apologize, but that's just one example I would use. Most meaningful things start when you're ready, you know, not when you're young. Back to the original point, you know, you think because you're young, you want to have it all figured out. The earlier you have success, people are of the notion like, oh, because I get money earlier and I'm super successful when I'm young, that means I'm going to have a relaxing rest of my life, just living in leisure. Life is good. Hey, man, got something to tell you. Child stars, dude. And you could say, well, they've been exposed to some horrible things. And to that, I would say touche. But a lot of them also just got given a lot of money when they were very young, and they don't know what to do with it. Like Justin Bieber, you know, he struggled for a while, Canadian boy. I love Biebs. Imagine growing up in front of the public eye. You know, you think you're going to have it all figured out. If you think money is going to solve all of your problems, you are in for a large mistake. I'm like Jim Carrey. I wish everybody had the opportunity to become rich, because then they would realize, oh, it's not the be all end all. You're still going to have family members that pass away. You're still going to have all these things that come up in your life. You're going to have new problems. Problems don't just cease to exist the second you get money. Think for a second, you know? I'd like to use an analogy as well. You know, it's like the best time rather, to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Either way, with time, you'll end up with the tree, dude. So, bada boom. And I think ultimately, readiness is going to beat youth. Because, I don't know if you've seen it, but usually people, they get this second wind. You know, maybe they go back to school in their 30s, 40s, and they ace everything because they're just so determined. They want to learn. They want to pursue this path. They're ready. And they're not going to falter because they're 100% dialed in, locked in. And I'm not saying you have to be 100% ready, you know. What I'm saying is you're willing to accept, I'm going into this thing, I'm probably going to fail countless times, but despite all that, I'm going to keep moving forward because the obstacle is the way. And I'm going to smash through it, you know. So, in conclusion, you didn't start late. You finally figured out why you want to do this thing. You started when you finally knew why. So if you're breathing, you're early enough. The clock that you are racing isn't real. So do things. Try things. It ain't over for you yet. You still got a lot of fight left in you, dog. Huh? You still got a lot of fight in there, big dog. So, I expect to hear about it. What you gonna do? Tell me in the comments. I want to know where you're going in life. I want to hear all about it. Because I love you, and I want to see you succeed. And that's why I'm here. I'm just trying shit out. Throwing it at the wall, hoping it sticks. So thank you for indulging me. I love you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.